word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we are gonna be talking about Trial of Magneto, #1 by Leah Williams and Lucas Wernick. And in this video, we are going to discuss why Magneto is the prime suspect for the murder of Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, aka the Pretender. We're also going to discuss why he is also not the only likely suspect. Another thing we're going to talk about too is how the death of Wanda Maximoff is affecting the land of Krakoa, and more importantly, why there is one very surprising, or maybe not so surprising, group of mutants who aren't exactly happy about her death. We're gonna talk about all this and more right now, but first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy the video, I humbly ask that you Hulk smash that like button because it really helps the channel out. Also, as a sidebar, I will be in Brooklyn, New York this weekend for Brooklyn Comic Con, which is going to be going down both this Saturday and Sunday, the 21st and 22nd of August. The event is going to be going down from 12 p.m. Eastern both days and will run until about roughly 7 p.m. both of those evenings, and there'll be some events and festivities that Saturday night after the main con goes down, like from 7 p.m. Eastern until whenever. Anyways, I'll be at the con, so if you're in the New York area, come by and holla at your boy. But please, don't forget to wear a mask, because I will most certainly have mine. Anyways, with all that out of the way, let's talk about Trial of Magneto, #1. Okay, so with this comic, one of the things that I think is gonna come straight out of the gate at everybody is just how much the evidence, all of the evidence right now, is pointing at Eric Magnus Langshire, Max Eisenhart, Magneto, whatever you want to call him this week. All of it points at Magneto. Right now, because of the fact that, Leah Williams is writing this story, and because the X Factor comic has come to an end, it is no surprise that we're going to get a very big helping of X Factor in this comic. And it's also unsurprising as well, because this does have to do with an autopsy. We're getting a lot of information as to what happened to Wanda Maximoff. Everybody's on deck for this one, not even just X Factor, but X-Force is also going back and double checking X Factor's findings, much to X Factor's chagrin, because they feel like they don't need anyone following up behind them and double checking their findings. But this is just how serious a matter that this is for the Quiet Council, and how serious that they're taking it, at least in terms of Charles Xavier for that matter. But yeah, everyone is backing this up. Even the X-Men, the current Jerry Duggan X-Men roster, is even following up behind this to double check and make sure that everything is above board. Whatever was going on here, Wanda Maximoff was not killed in a way that she was personally okay with. You see, we notice in this that whatever happened, there was a struggle. There's even moments where it's brought up the fact that she has even dug into her own skin and torn her own fingernails, trying to tear whatever it was that was strangling her. The long story short of it is the fact that whoever did this to her didn't kill her with their bare hands. Now, we do remember in X Factor #10, when we first witnessed the dead body of the Scarlet Witch, she had bruising around her neck. That is still in play here. She had bruising about her neck because at some point in the struggle, her hands were bound and her throat was being strangulated by something that was not human flesh or mutant flesh. Whatever it was that happened, something metallic wrapped around her throat and choked her to death, and something metallic also wrapped around her hands and bound her. There's also the interesting notion that whatever it was that was going on, whoever it was that did this to her did not harm her face, which leads Northstar to believe that whatever this was a crime of passion, and whoever did this cared about her, which is usually a sign when, even in real life, when someone is murdered and their face is left largely and probably incredibly untouched or unscarred or blemished. Another thing that is noted is that she didn't use her magic. She is a reality warping individual. She has great and incredible power and is very well versed in chaos magic. She could literally, if she wanted to, stop someone from killing her if she really wanted to. This is kind of why all of these points lead back to Magneto, because if she didn't use her power, she clearly felt comfortable around whoever it was that ultimately wound up attacking her. All the evidence, even the blood that is on her body, none of this belongs to anybody else. Whoever did this was incredibly thorough, and any evidence that would link to anyone else that at least at first glance, all of it belongs to Wanda Maximoff. Wanda Maximoff's windpipe was crushed, and someone has to be responsible for it. Someone did this to her, and what we learn is from the character Prestige, she actually notices, due to her chrono-skimming ability, that at some point when all this was done, that the body was left out in the open. This wasn't a rushed action. Someone wanted this body to be found. Someone did this on purpose, and they wanted everyone to be keenly aware that it was Wanda who was dead, and maybe even tried to make it look like it was Magneto. One of the other things that Prestige takes notice of is that in the little bit of chrono skimming that she can pick up from the body itself, whoever it was that did the deed was wearing a white cape. Now, how many characters do we know that wear white capes on Krakoa? Well, one of them specifically would be the character Magneto. Now, of course, this all points to Magneto. Magneto has been wearing the dress white pretty much since all this House of X business began, and has very rarely been seen not wearing his patented white costume. Occasionally he goes back to the old school purple and red, and we've even seen him in the black and gray, which we do see him in this issue. But that is something that I thought was incredibly interesting about this, and reading this comic actually gave me some new perspectives on this entire case. Now, originally I posited that yes, Magneto did do it, and I felt that it wasn't so much a whodunit as it is he did it because he wanted to make things right. We saw in Al Ewing's Sword number 6 that Magneto had made up with Wanda Maximoff, and that clearly there was a relationship there that he wanted to make things right. And that's kind of where my heart still lies with this, but I originally thought that maybe Max Eisenhart had killed her in order to have her resurrected as a mutant. This is actually a theory that does get lent some credence in terms of what he wants for Wanda Maximoff in the wake of her death, because we do learn in this that when the Quiet Council is meeting about this whole matter, which most of the Quiet Council seems incredibly dismissive about the idea that Wanda Maximoff is no longer on this plane of existence, she has been escorted to the upper room, we learn in this that Magneto, he does want her resurrected. He wants her brought back, and he wants her brought back, maybe not necessarily as a mutant, but it is convenient, as Charles Xavier points out, that of the characters in the Marvel Comics universe who aren't mutants, Wanda Maximoff, as well as her brother Quicksilver, are probably the only two non-mutants in existence who actually have backups in Cerebro due to how well they infiltrated mutant culture, because as in the past, they were considered mutants up until a retcon. This was a part of Rick Remender's Uncanny Avengers number 4, if you are curious to know how that all played out, where Wanda and Quicksilver were revealed to not actually be mutants. Well, in all of this, one of the things that is done is that a vote is put down, and while yes, a few mutants do vote for the resurrection of Wanda Maximoff, because even though yes, technically she's not a mutant, she does have a backup, and they have the ability to do it. Why not? Even Kate Pryde brings it up. We have the ability to prove that we are better than what people think we are by just helping other people. We have it in our power to resurrect a non-mutant. Why not? If anyone knows how fickle and crazy the resurrection protocols are, it would be Kate Pryde, considering she spent a good chunk of the entire Marauders run dead, and had people speculating whether or not she was a Skrull or a Neo or some other kind of imposter, that she wasn't truly a mutant. Everybody was coming up with these crackpot theories as to why Kate Pryde couldn't be resurrected, but it was actually something just as simple as that it was a quirk of her powers that kept her from being resurrected. At least, not so much kept her from being resurrected, but made it more difficult for her to actually come out of the egg that the new bodies that are created by the Five, it made it more difficult for her to crack through that egg. That's neither here nor there. Point of the matter is that when this is put to a vote, the only people who vote in favor of it are Magneto, Nightcrawler, and Kate Pryde. Everyone else on the council, Storm, Emma Frost, Sebastian Shaw, Exodus, Mystique, Sinister, everyone else is against it. And it is probably safe to assume Charles also voted against it, even though technically he didn't raise his hand, or maybe he was excluding himself from the vote, whatever the case may be. But Magneto does not have a very favorable reaction to this, as one would imagine. He even tries to harm Xavier as a result of this, even trying to crush Xavier's skull using the Cerebro that he has been wearing 24/7 since House of X began. Magneto is in a really rough spot right now, and one could imagine why. He is just mortified at the fact that this woman who he's always looked at as one of his own, as a child of his own daughter, even though technically that was all retconned away, he's still, even though he acted salty and put on this facade, this whole, stiff upper lip mentality towards her in regards of how he, kind of treated her as she was the pretender that everyone else called her to be. We did learn in Al Ewing's Sword number 6 that that's actually not the case. He actually loves her. He still cares about her, and he wants her to be a part of his life. And he even talks about the fact that technically she isn't his daughter and he is not her father, but he does actually mention that it takes two to pretend, and that he wants her to be his daughter again, and he hopes that she wants him to be her father again. And it's all very sweet and interesting, but as Magneto is walking through Krakoa, he's seeing that everyone is celebrating Wanda's death. Everyone's yelling death to the pretender, almost in a ding dong, the witch is dead kind of way, and it hurts Magneto, you can tell, and everyone thinks that it was him. X-Factor even pulls up on him and tries to take him down, and there is, in fact, one person who's willing to lay all of this at Magneto's feet and is nearly ready to kill him when he finds him. And it's a character we haven't seen on Krakoa since all this began, and a character I'm surprised it took this long to show up in all this, and that is Wanda Maximoff's brother, Quicksilver, who in a blink of an eye is actually able to get to Krakoa, beat the sweet tea out of Magneto in front of Queen and Country, and literally is about ready to kill him. No one can even see what is happening. The only character capable of actually perceiving what is happening at this moment is the character Northstar, because it has been proven he is in fact the fastest man alive in the Marvel Comics universe. He's able to catch up with Quicksilver and stop him from doing something that, well, he maybe won't ever regret it, but something that probably shouldn't happen just yet, because we haven't had a trial, and it would not be much of a trial of Magneto if they killed him before the trial even started. Truth of the matter is, it's once Magneto is actually knocked unconscious by Quicksilver that we actually kind of get a moment to sit down and really analyze what it is exactly that we know. Truth is, I said earlier that I think that Magneto isn't the only suspect in this, and that he very well likely isn't even the one who is responsible. There's at least two other individuals, maybe even three, in the Marvel Comics universe I could easily lay this at the feet of. Now, yes, a very popular fan theory recently in the last few months is that it could very well be Mystique. Now, why would it be Mystique? Well, Mystique has the ability to mimic and shapeshift into other mutants. Now, that said, she can't replicate their powers, and this is where I think Mystique is likely in no way, shape, form, or fashion responsible for this, because she can't mimic magnetism. She can look like Magneto all she wants, but she can't really duplicate his power set. Another thing to consider here too is that she does actually have the most motive. Even at the Quiet Council meeting, she is very, very much throwing jabs at Magneto for suddenly taking an interest in resurrecting someone who isn't even a mutant, and while she doesn't necessarily bring up Destiny, we all know how Magneto feels about the resurrection of Destiny and how that's affected Mystique. So while she does have probably the most motive of anybody else, she's actually probably the least likely person to have done it. She probably wishes that she did though. Exodus is another character who wears a white cape, and he is incredibly unfond of the character of Wanda Maximoff. He has probably been the one who is the most out and out about the idea that he hates her. Matter of fact, I think the first time that we ever hear Wanda Maximoff referred to as a pretender, he's one of the first people to actually call her that. And we all know how he feels about, taking care of Krakoa's problems. And while, yes, he does not have the ability to manipulate metal, he is a telekinetic, and he is an Omega level telekinetic at that. And I believe if anyone would have the ability to crush the windpipe of Wanda Maximoff and bound her hands, it would be him. But I don't think he has the ability to turn off Wanda Maximoff's magic, and more importantly, he doesn't care about Wanda Maximoff, so why would he avoid her face in this whole frontal assault? I don't know, He's likely, but incredibly unlikely. He has a lot of motive in this, but he also has, the evidence just doesn't point in his direction. Now, one of the other characters I think that gets brought up a lot in this, and I've seen kind of popping up on the internet recently, is the character of Dr. Doom. Now, before everybody goes, or anything like that, the truth of the matter is Dr. Doom could just as easily be responsible for this as anybody else. Now, I know what you're thinking. Probably saying, hey, Doom wears a green cape. He doesn't wear a white cape. True. However, he has been known to wear white capes in the past and not too terribly far from this moment. That said, the only reason I don't think it's him is because he does actually care about Wanda Maximoff in his own really weird, strange way. That would also damn him because, once again, whoever it was that did this actually cares about Wanda Maximoff and did not harm her face. Now, if you're familiar with the story Avengers Children's Crusade, which was a story that kind of cemented Wiccan and Tommy, aka Speed, as being Wanda Maximoff's actual children. In the storyline, Doom actually did kind of on the low-key, high-key kidnap Wanda Maximoff, even though technically she did seek him out. But without going too terribly deep into the shenanigans of all that, we do know that Doom did actually try to marry Wanda Maximoff, and he did actually display the ability to turn off other people's abilities to control magic and their connection to it. He actually did so in regards to the character Wiccan, turning off his ability to use magic when he confronted it. This actually makes Doom more of a prime suspect than anything else, and of course, it would also be a very interesting nod to that storyline, the Children's Crusade. It's a storyline that I actually see a lot of you in the comments and people in previous videos and comments for that. I have seen actually get brought up a lot, in terms of other things that have been going on with mutants and so and things of that nature. Though sometimes I think you guys misremember how that book actually ended. However, it's funny to me to think about because it actually does point a lot of fingers at Doom, especially if you've read that story arc. It'd be very easy for you to look at Dr. Doom and say, yep, that guy probably did it. Another reason why I'm starting to wonder about who this truly is the fact that when it's brought up, the idea is posited of Jean going into Magneto's mind while he's still unconscious or being rocked by Quicksilver. One of the things that I found incredibly interesting, this is, it's brought up, why don't we just go into his mind right now while he's unconscious? But Jean actually brings up that this is probably the worst possible time to try and check in on what he's thinking about, because right now, his subconscious mind is in the forefront. So anything he's thinking about would probably make him look like he's a suspect. It would be highly unreliable information. And even if they did do this, Jean wouldn't be able to do it alone. She would need Emma's help. And even then, going into his mind would probably be like stepping into a minefield, because not only is his subconscious mind at the forefront, he's probably also in incredible anguish right now. And probably, I would say, the closest thing to explaining or describing what he's feeling is probably nightmarish. Another issue in this is that we start getting some dialogue, which it later isn't revealed until, closer towards the end of the book, but we learn that we're seeing images that at first we wonder if this is in Magneto's head. It's actually not. What we're seeing is, and who is talking to us, it's all coming from the perspective of the Scarlet Witch. She's actually kind of explaining a lot of what I just said in a very eloquent and flowery fashion. However, that's not really the part I want to focus on. What I kind of want to focus on here is who it is in her mind that she's facing off with. In her mind, there is some cloaked figure who is also wearing white, wielding a blade, which, once again, she wasn't stabbed, so this is all metaphorical, but this is maybe kind of a way of alluding to the idea of who killed her. But whoever it is, they're wearing a hood, a white cloak, and she seems incredibly surprised by the fact that they killed her. But even in her death, what is brought up is the fact that she's not really dead. Scarlet Witch is not actually alive either. Whatever it is that has happened to her, yes, she was killed. And yes, she did die. However, she is not dead, which is a very interesting thing to think about. All of that aside, this actually brings up something very interesting, because at the very back of the book, we are shown a symbol. Now, for those who don't know what the symbol is, this circle with the arrows pointing out of it is a symbol of chaos. And we all know what Wanda's magic powers are often referred to as chaos magic. Originally it was hex magic, and it's still often referred to as hexes, but it is chaos magic. And we see that symbol shrunken down to yet another symbol. Now, this symbol I'm not as terribly familiar with, nor the symbol at the very bottom. However, as you notice, it seems almost as though the symbol is becoming much smaller and smaller and smaller, or even though it's actually becoming bigger, but the number of arrows are decreasing from it. And it all comes down to one final question. Where am I? She's not dead, so that is the question. Is she lost somewhere in the realm of magic? What has actually happened to her? Because one of the things we also have to think about is the Darkhold story that's coming up from Marvel, which is a big event that is also going to heavily focus on Scarlet Witch and Doctor Doom. While that story is set to technically take place before this, I feel like that story is going to kind of inform on some of the things that we're looking at. But where on earth is Wanda Maximoff? Who knows? I don't know. I have no idea. But I have a sneaky suspicion the answer is going to shock a lot of people. Beyond all that, the story overall does have a lot of incredible themes to it. It's very interesting, and I love the fact that it didn't go quite the way I was expecting. I actually kind of expected them to just jump straight into the trial and just start immediately damning Magneto, which technically they did, but I kind of expected it to be more of a, yeah, this is actually Magneto. Magneto did this and there's no getting around it. And Magneto in this book vehemently is against the idea that he killed his own daughter, or rather, Quotey Finger's daughter. All of that aside, I did actually enjoy, there's a little nod in here to the past, to the history of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants when Quicksilver is, going to the Green Lagoon, and it just so happens that the characters Toad, Mastermind, and Blob are there. Blob is a little more likely because Blob operates the Green Lagoon, but the reason why this is important is because all 4 of these individuals were a part of the original incarnation of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And guess who else was also a part of that incarnation? Scarlet Witch. And right now, they all kind of feel the same way. Even though without actually saying it, for the most part, with really Toad being the only one who voices his actual opinion of matters, even Mastermind has to raise a glass and say, "To simpler times," with Toad replying, "The good old days," as all 4 characters take a drink in honor of Wanda Maximoff, with Toad even going off about how it's not fair and how could this happen, even being kicked out of the Green Lagoon after his outburst because he was breaking glasses, and all this with Quicksilver just kind of drowning in his own sorrows and remembering and honoring his sister, where I know some people will probably come out and say, maybe he did it, and I don't know, I don't think it's incredibly likely. But if it was, who knows? I mean, Quicksilver, is he fast enough to run around Wanda fast enough that he could bind her hands and make it appear as though he wasn't really touching her and, crushing her windpipe by choking her, but he's moving so fast that he's not really touching her? Maybe, but I don't know. It just seemed like that would be a bit of a reach. But anyways, that's really everything of note with Trial of Magneto and why these things that are happening, why these things stick out and stand out the way that they do. If you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video all over the internet and with all your friends so they'll know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to the Trial of Magneto. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you thought about the Trial of Magneto #1. Who is your prime suspect? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.